All right, I was going to tell you a story. So about at one time I was in Ireland by Earl Portland. One time I went to Ireland and I got to my airport early. I think that it was Shannon, the airport. I'm not sure, I can't remember. But I went north a bit. I just picked a town randomly and traveled north to spend 2 weeks just resting and enjoying Ireland. And I got a room at a hostel, and in that room was a guy that he was a musician. I believe he was from Canada, and he's like, I came here to learn Irish music, and do you want to come with me and hear some music tonight? And I go, sure. And so we head out, and I get introduced to people, and I sit down by myself, and they play music. And I had a wonderful evening, and the next day by myself. Every day I go out and have an adventure. I pick like a different direction and just ride, and or I ask around at places that I should check out. And then I come back and I just walk through the town, and I'll hear music at a bar, and I'll just go in. And I went in, I recognized almost everyone playing music. And I wave at everybody. And so I imagine this is like, this gotta be around dinner time. So let's say 5 or 6. So I think the bar closes at like 11. It closed really early. And bartender comes up to me and she says, we're closing, love. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get out of here, thank you. She's like, oh, no, you don't have to leave. I'm just seeing if you want a beer. And I'm like, oh, but you're closing? She's like, yeah, but you could have more beer. We just can't serve any more beer because we're closing. And I'm just confused by this. And I'm like, okay, I'll have a beer. And she's like, just one beer? I'm like, yeah, because I bet you anything at this point in time, I'm drunk. I'm like, just one beer's fine. Like, I wasn't sure what was happening. And she's like, well, a lot of people like just figure out how many beers they want to have and order that many. And I'm like, what? I don't know what's going on. And so I think she looks around for help, and all the guys that I know are sitting over in a corner together, and they're either eavesdropping or something. But one of them's like, Earl, order a bunch of beers. They're gonna lock the doors. So you'll just sit here and drink until we're ready to go. And I'm like, oh, okay. I go, okay, I'll have 2 beers. And she's like, 2 beers? And I'm like, he's like, Earl will have 3 beers. And I'm like, I'll have 3 beers, please? She's like, okay. And then so I drink those 3 beers for the rest of the night. Maybe there was more beer involved. I can't quite remember. I do remember they all took me home, or actually a small group of them took me home to my hostel, made sure they got me in my actual bunk, made sure that I was sure that this was my stuff in my bunk, that they weren't putting me in somebody else's sleeping bag, and then left me. They came and went in the hostel without checking with anybody. It's like they owned the place. And so it was after that it was mix and repeat. Like, so the next day went by a place, heard music, walked in, and I don't think I recognized a whole lot of people the second time it happened. Just maybe 1 or 2. Most people are strangers, and they're like, oh, we're leaving. And I'm like, all right, well, have a great evening. They're like, no, we're leaving. Come on, we're going to the Rosen Castle. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I get up, and they all leave. And I finish my drink, and I go up to the bartender and said, oh, so where's this Rosen Castle? And she's like, oh, your mates will tell you. And I'm like, oh, they left. So she's like, oh, they'll be waiting for you. And I'm like, oh. I walk outside, and sure enough, they're all waiting for me. Like, she even knew that somehow. And it was like that every night after that. So, like, we'd go to that place, the next place. I recognized tons more people. And I love this cool place over here. I recognized tons more people, and this time they played a bunch of music. Everyone got up. So they said, Earl, we're going. And I'm like, yo. Down my beer, raced over to them, followed them like a puppy, bar to bar to bar, and I just did that every single night. And it was such a wonderful time. Like, I didn't get to know any one of those guys. There was no sense of like, let's exchange addresses, let's become like, tell me about your life or anything like that. It was just, this guy's traveling, let's show him a good time. And it was so much fun. And so like, sometimes they would sit with me, sometimes they have me sit with them. Almost always I sat by myself. But then people would come and check on me. They'd ask me where I went that day. They'd give me advice for the next day. Like they just like, everyone kept tabs on me. Like, so they didn't like, I kind of felt like snuggled to their bosom a little bit, but still just as like a pet, you know, like just like a person that they've kind of adopted in their group. And it was such a lovely memory. And you know, I want to mention this because I've told this story before. It'd be interesting to see if I told it the same way this time around. But I remember last time I said there was a little bit of a gray shadow on this memory because the guy that introduced me to the fact that this place was so musically inclined didn't get the same kind of acceptance into their group. And I think maybe it was because he wanted it. And for me, it was more like I appreciated it. And I'm sure every time they said, Earl, we're going, my face kind of lit up. But I wasn't going to, if they all walked out, I wasn't going to follow them unless someone said, Earl, we're going. Oh, before I tell the shadows part of it, I do remember going into a place where I recognized none of the musicians. And so I bet you he was a musician, but like probably in the crowd a lot. And everyone get up to leave, and I'm not going with them because I don't know them. And this guy I don't know goes, Earl, come on, we're going. I'm like, oh, okay. It was so fun. But the other guy, the Canadian guy, didn't get the same treatment, and I felt sad for him. But like, and then I tried to like do more things with him. I'm like, why don't you come with me on my jaunts? But his priority was still music, so as he would leave early in the day because he needed to go back, shower, get his instrument, get warmed up, and then go meet his group to play. So, I mean, I did what I could. I mean, damned if I'm like familiar with the fact that with like what it's like to have a group of people, a community, like intentionally include you in their actions. So like I've got no idea why that was the case. So something about me struck their fancy. Worked out a little bit. And I went for a walk. That's a real good memory. You know, I often don't feel that I connect well with other people. I've certainly never felt that I've been accepted in a group, because it's not anyone's fault more than it is my own nature, actually. I feel that like a lot of times, every time I'm around a group, I'm not a part of it. It's like when I'm on a long hike with people, I'm on my own hike, or on like a long bicycle trip I've been on. Like, I believe in the support of a group of people, and if anything, like one time I was on a long bike ride, and so when the cyclist just kept crashing, and I said, "Hey, you're getting tired after a few crashes. Your fatigue level's gone way up. Like, you just need to slow your pace." And this guy couldn't believe that my concept to his solution was to not be a part of the group. And I'm like, I'll ride with you. Like, we should all slow down, actually. We should all ride as fast as our slowest member. And other people are like, no, I'm not doing that. And this guy like saw that. He's like, no, I could keep up. And I'm like, all right, well, you go ahead and keep up, and I'm gonna ride slow. And if you want to slow down, if you crash again, just slow down and I'll catch up to you and we could ride together. And like, also, I didn't like that bullshit. I didn't like that all these guys just immediately said like, no, we're not. Just because he's crashing a lot doesn't mean we slow down. We don't inconvenience ourselves because he's crashing a lot. Because he also didn't train, and like, he wasn't prepared, so he just thought he could do it. So, but that is how I respond in a group situation. I don't say like, well, I mean, that's your own call then, and just ride with everybody else and watch him. He crashed over and over and over again. Ended up going home with strangers because his friends didn't want to drive him home even though he was hurt. And so fuck that, fuck those people. So like, I often don't mesh with groups, and even if like even if it's smooth sailing at first, I'm still wary of that kind of thing. Still wary of like when you go hiking with people and someone starts shivering, and people keep asking what's wrong with you, and you're like, well, that's a sign of hypothermia. Like, well, they're wearing lots of clothes. I'm like, that doesn't change. That's not a sign of hypothermia, right? Like, they may be wearing too much clothes or sweating or something like that. And people are just dismissive. So I'm like, it's like almost like the things I do alone, like cycling long distance alone, or canoeing out on the river alone at night, or hiking at night, actually. Like, it almost feels safer. Like, I'm not overwhelmed by my sense of judgment. Like, I don't think I have amazing judgment. But I do know that I could be careful and conscientious and take the time I need to think something through before I act on it. And if I start feeling like a little sense of maybe this isn't the best thing in the world, I give up. I just go back. I turn around. I call it good. Like some of the hikes I'm the proudest of, actually, we're getting into conditions where I said, this doesn't look smart to me, and just going home. Like, I'm proud of like spending all day to go out hiking and then only hiking an hour before I realize this is not smart. Something about this doesn't feel right. But over and over again, you go out with groups and there's a bunch of people like, no, this was a 6-hour hike and we're gonna hike for 6 hours. I'm like, all right, meet you back at the car. I went a hike with some people that I knew that this one particular lake in a valley had bug problems. I read it was famous for bug problems. And as we like crested this hill to go down into the valley, I could literally see what looked like mist. Like, not only over the lake itself, but like on the trail, like looking down the trail, like there was kind of a hazy, gauzy look to it. And I'm like, those are insects. And the closer we got to it, like, sure enough, there was mosquitoes. Like, the air was thick with mosquitoes. But before I even got there, I said, like, this is far enough, guys, I'm heading back. And like, well, wait, we should talk about this. And I just turned and left. Like, there's nothing to talk about. If mosquitoes are so thick that it looks like a cloud over a lake, then you don't go there. Like, that's not natural. That's an unnaturally large amount of mosquitoes to be all gathered together in one spot. So that's the thing. So like, I think there's like a flip side of that, and I've never really thought about it before. So I appreciate groups. Like, this memory is a great memory of 15 minutes of being included in a group. But I think there's other people that great memory means to them. The group is where these good memories come from. So I have to be with the group. If they all leave, I have to go with them. Like, I have to stick with them. I can't wait to be invited. I'll look around and see what everyone else does, and I'll just do that. If they order 3 beers, I'll order 3 beers. Rather than like, do you want 3 beers? That kind of thing. Do you need 3 beers? Will there be any difference in your level of drunkenness? So, all right, that's long enough for the story.